What's going on, guys? It's me, Seh here, and welcome to my Commentated the Count Lucanor speedrun. Now, it's especially exciting since this is the world's first sub 15 time. It's a really exciting speedrun, and I'm really happy to have gotten it, and this is also why I wanted to make something special out of it, which is why I'm going to commentate the whole thing. So even those of you who maybe don't actually speedrun this game know what's going on. And so without further ado, let's actually get into the run. Now, what you can straight up see is that I'm using custom textures, which is allowed in this game as long as they don't impact gameplay. Originally I made this design for the meme categories, but well, it turned out I just didn't want to make another one, so I just kept it and started adding some more textures on top of it, which is why this run will probably sound or look stupid in some places, but well, that's no biggie because it doesn't actually impact gameplay. What you can also see is that we run the game in Chinese. It's the fastest language, but unlike a lot of other games, you don't really need to memorize anything here, so don't worry about it too much if you want to get into the game. It's basically just at one point you need to select something, but it's literally always the second option, and other than that you can basically just ignore it. Now, this intro sequence has been the same ever since we started running the game. It's basically just mash for about 35 seconds. However, after that you want to go and pick up the bone, which is where the first trick kind of comes in. Well, it's not really a trick, but sometimes when you talk to Spittle, usually you would have to talk to him twice before you can give him the bone. However, as you can see in this run, as well as in my meme category run, sometimes you just talk to him once and can give him the bone straight away. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't really know why it happens, but sometimes it does, and it saves like half a second. Now, despite not seeming like it so far, the game actually has really interesting movement, because you walk really slow. However, there are a few ways where you can actually speed up a bit, as well as just some general strats in terms of minimizing the amount of distance you travel. Like, coming up right here is one of those strats. You wanna walk to this tree and then just walk through the crown of the tree and then just start walking to the left, trying to be as low as possible, but just not too low, as otherwise you just bunk with a collision hitbox. Here comes up another trick. You can actually slide on a lot of obstacles in this game, meaning you run into them and then you get a small speed boost, as it kind of, the hitbox shoves you along. And we use this in some instances of the run. Well, basically I do, because no one else actually took the time to optimize those things. It maybe saves a second over the entire duration of the run, and if you mess up even a single one, you basically lose like 2 seconds, so it's really risky and probably the main reason why no one else done it. You could definitely still get a world record without doing it. Now here we want to get 2 apples and feed one to the donkey, so he's still alive if we want to reach the castle, otherwise he'll be dead. And then we must make sure to unequip the apple, because a new trick I found. Well, as it turns out, we always used to eat an apple and then load a save in order to get an infinite apple glitch. But as it turns out, as long as you're holding any consumable, it basically, you get the glitch if you load a save where you aren't holding it. It basically still thinks you're holding it, and you can in essence have an infinite amount of said consumable. Like here, just equip the apple and load the save, which just got created right here during this 4-second load screen, and here just slide along as well. Also in the room before you could see me sliding at a few points. I think I missed one where I lost like a bit of time, but because I was a few pixels off of where you could start to slide. Here it's just walk up and get to the night segment. Now, usually we would use to do that, so we don't need to take damage later in the run to actually eat the apple. However, as it turns out now that we already have the apple glitch activated, we can't actually talk to the goat herd, as you are already holding an apple and you can't unequip it. So he will already say he doesn't want the apple, so you can't reach a night segment like that. Now, the night segment is probably the one part of the run which changed the least at all. You basically still just want to get to the castle as fast as possible. The only kind of strat is unequipping the candle here, so you don't get like the single dialogue box which talks about those goats. And I also slide along a few rocks on the way to the castle, which maybe saves 0.1 seconds, but overall I still lose about 0.4 seconds on the split. I'm not exactly sure why, probably just some unoptimized movement in certain points. Like, this run is definitely beatable, however, I still feel kind of confident in it, as I feel I did very well on it, especially in the later stages. And the time I saved is not only because of some new route changes, it's also just because of optimization. Like, right here you can slide along those rocks, which saves a bit of time, and here as well. Overall, sliding is not really a big deal, it's just tiny amounts of time saved over the entire course of the run, which just add up over time. Now here I just get still a really solid night, because usually we were used to getting it at like about 5 minutes, however now that the glitch is in the beginning and you need to walk up to the grave, which is about a second slower or something than talking to a goat herd, it takes a bit longer now, the beginning segments, which is also why I completely redid my splits, as they still had the old route, which meant my sum of bests was something completely unachievable. Now, here you just need to be careful not to place down your candle when trying to go through that door, because it's on the same button, and also on most of the room transitions you need to repress your keys, which is an oddity about this game, but it's not really that annoying once you get used to it. However, in Yuppie Psycho you don't have that anymore. It was a bit of a bummer getting used to it again, so yeah. Here just mashed through the cutscene and we got another kind of skip coming up, because now what we need to do is just advance the time, because every time the time passes a new window on the second floor will light up, and once the right one is lit up we can actually get the kobold's name, which is what we need to do. Here we can also skip the cutscene with Petronio, because we only entered the rooms and left immediately, which also advances the time. And we also slide along the bases of those statues. This is not the most optimal way to slide among them, but it's probably the only one humanly doable, as the other one is like multiple times pixel perfect. Even though the pixels are a bit bigger in this game, it's still really precise and completely unnecessary, as you lose a ton of time if you miss them. Here this cutscene is really long, you just need to mash through it, and then we can get the green key, which is after which we usually would save. However, now that we already have the apple glitch activated, we don't need to do that. Here I even messed up a bit, probably losing half a second again. And like here, this was fine, but once we actually get to the donkey, here just enter this room and leave again to advance the time further, and the donkey will spawn. You just slide along, and I actually moved to the top of it. Usually we would go to the bottom, however it's a bit faster because you need to go up again afterwards anyways, so if you just start there you don't need to go all around him. Here just interact with him 4 times, give him the 4 apples we're currently holding, which would technically put us at -3, but the game just doesn't count them, as it still thinks we're holding them and therefore just subtracts an apple from literally the none we're holding. Here we need to enter one more room, and inside this room I actually switched to the money because I now needed to buy the gold key and I didn't want to switch during a cutscene. Here I also split a bit late. I think it would have been the big time save here, but now on this next segment there will be like a -6, but it's mainly coming from the last segment. Here I'm just going to buy the key, and now it's also something interesting. Now there are servants in this castle, which stun you if you get caught by them, which is really slow. So usually it's technically a second faster to go into the room below us first. However, it appears to do something with those servants, because if we do that, there will always be one in our way later down the line, so we have to go in this room up first. Even though it's technically about a second slower, it still saves like 3 extra seconds compared to the other one, simply because we don't have to deal with the servant. You just slide along the pillar and enter the red room. And now it's one final room before we can actually move on to getting the name, which is right here. This is the room that would be a bit faster. I basically use every statue slide on the way. Here I missed one, but luckily not in a bad way. just didn't hit it because I was too far away. And here's the infamous stair slide, which is where all of those slide tricks first originated, like where I first found them. Now, except for me, literally no one does any of the slides, which is really interesting because they aren't that difficult once you get used to them. They just kind of put you all over the place. Here, just mash through another cutscene and get the name, and we are going to be going onwards towards the dungeon. This segment is also basically the same ever since the game started, but that doesn't really matter because it's pretty short. Here comes another stair slide. What you want to do is be on like the third step, and then you can just go down. On this floor you can always go down no matter where you start. Just crawl under that, it doesn't really make you slower. Slide along the statue, and right to the left of us is a servant, however it's just barely far enough away so it doesn't recognize us. Here we just talk to Petronio, give him his name, and we can move on to the next segment, which is where another really interesting glitch happened. Here, usually you would just fall down, trigger a cutscene and then spawn at the bottom, but what was quite interesting here, it saved about 2 seconds maybe. As you can see, I apparently did not fall for some reason and then just clicked down, and now for some reason I started mashing escape during this fade to black just to skip the cutscenes to the bottom, but it just didn't happen, but you can hear the audio in the background, which is really interesting. Now what you want to do is just do the basement segment as normal. Basically just put down one of the candles here so we can see it for later and talk to JF. At that point my heart was really pounding because it was like, this is a glitch, I have no idea how it happened, and it saved time, so I really need to make something out of this run, which is why some of the more risky slides down here I'm not actually doing, because if I mess them up the run is basically dead, so I didn't want to risk it. However, now there are 2 slides coming up which are incredibly simple. It's just this one here, you can at the very edge just slide along, and here from where the arm of the skeleton is you can also slide, which is like probably one of the bigger time saves. Here just walk up and get the signet, and before we transition to this room I switch to the cane so I don't have to after this cutscene, and I can just straight up interact with this to get the medal. Now I switch back to the candle, because otherwise I can't see where I'm going in the other room, and I'm straight back down. So far this segment is incredibly simple because it's basically just do the same every time, and there aren't really any optimizations you can do, it's still just walking, trying to take the smallest path possible. Here just re-equip the signet, which is also where we place the candle down so we can find our way up there. And that's another split where, as you can see, I saved like 7.7 seconds, which is 1.7 more than the last split, which is probably because of the cutscene skip. However, I'm not actually sure if it saved any time really, as I was also stuck in the top for a bit longer. Now just talk to JF and get the beans, and now comes the last hard part of the entire run, because sometimes those beasts in the basement can really mess you up because of their the way they spawn. Now here I got lucky because they spawn really far away, and also they move while you're down there, and they can sometimes move in your way. However, here it didn't happen, and now you just need to move past to the well and get the blood. Here's another cutscene we just need to mash through, and after that even the beasts in the basement will be absolutely no problem because you can just walk past them, as you can see shortly. Like, every time you leave this main room they won't move anymore, and as you can see here, it's just coming up and not even facing us, so we are in no danger at all. Now, here what we want to do is just go into the room we opened before. We didn't need to do that beforehand because it actually just counts if it's opened, not if you actually have been inside, and then just plant the seed and water it. The watering it is a bit annoying because if you want to quick menu it, you need to press to the left of the menu either 2 or 3 times from the beans. It's not exactly sure when it's which, but sometimes it's different. Now what we want to do is just talk to JF for one final time before performing probably one of the bigger glitches in this game. right before the end as well. However, usually we would do it incredibly inconsistently because we didn't really know how to do it properly. But what I found out is, what you can see shortly is just you need to interact with it once, which we knew already, and when you before you interact with it the second time, just load to save and don't press enter, just mash E, and then once it's fade to black, start mashing enter, which gives you the most optimal pattern in terms of coming up. Here you can also slide along Petronio because usually he would be in a cutscene right now, but if he's not, he's apparently having the same geometry as some of the rocks earlier. You just smash through that text and timing ends as soon as we press interact with the throne, which is coming up right about now. So yeah, here you can see my average split switch is, I really don't know why LiveSplit even has that, but it's overall really solid, and I'm not exactly sure if my sum of bests is actually achievable because I split one of the times late, and other than that, it's a really solid run. I'm really happy with it, and thank you for watching.